Hello, hello. Welcome on to Branded. This is the podcast that takes you behind the scenes and beyond the brand to give you the clarity and confidence to challenge the status quo and show the fuck up in your own life. Today, we're talking with Lianne McMerkl. I am McMerkl. I'm so sorry.
So good.
I am really excited to talk to Lianne. She is a new connection for me, and she's got a really, really cool story that, her and I have a little bit in common, whereas we're both still working our JOBs essentially and building something on the side that brings us passion and happiness and excitement and all the things. So that's one of the main reasons that I started this podcast to begin with, was to show women the possibility, like it's okay to have the job and still want something else. So I'm really excited to bring this episode to you guys today. Lianne, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm excited just having the connection with that and having met in September, I guess it was.
Yeah, we did meet a couple months back. We were both participating in a program. And I mean, right then and there, okay, obviously we have things in common. We are passionate about similar things. So then you strike up conversation. And then next thing you know, here you are recording a podcast.
Exactly. Yes. Love this. I love this platform. It's one of my favorites.
Oh, so good. All right, you guys. So let me tell you a little bit about Lianne. She is the CEO of Spiritual Shift Worker. While navigating her career in law enforcement, which we'll talk about a little bit, she's also diving into the world of podcasting. So welcome. It's so fun. And she helps women tap into their intuition and learn to use their skills to create that fulfilled life. Of course, through meditation and manifestation and all of these things that she's kind of, into and specializing in. And of course, she's doing all of this through her podcast, The Spiritual Shift Worker. So I'm excited to dive into your podcast too and explore it. So before we get into all of that, let's take it back a little bit and let's talk about what life looked like before you decided you wanted to start a business for yourself.
Okay, thank you for all of that. I'm really excited to have these conversations because being on this side of the mic, but usually being the interviewer, it's really nice to be able to share more of my journey. And so honestly, it started a long time ago because I knew like I had all the nudges a very probably 10 years ago, and tended to not really listen to all the little whispers, the little nudges, but always felt like I'm made for more than just what I'm doing. And one thing that I want people to take away from right off the bat is that when you don't listen to the nudges, they turn into like the smack upside the head. So that is the first thing.
So true.
But yeah, I think for me, it was really about knowing that I came here for more than just, working a job, even though my job is not just a job, it's a whole other culture. But just doing like the same thing over and over and over again every day, right? Having that Groundhog Day, I was literally, my soul was dying. And again, like I said, it's been a 10-year journey until I finally made a decision to start the podcast, which was in total full alignment. I've tried a lot of things, network marketing. I've tried being a coach. I've tried nutrition coaching. I don't even know how many certifications I have. It's insane.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
When you get full alignment, when you start listening to the things that light you up and that feeling in your body, then honestly, everything falls into place.
It really does. And that actually it's almost like this unexplainable thing. You have to really experience it and feel it in order to finally be like, whoa, this is what everybody was talking about. And so I felt the same way about podcasting as well. I started my podcast by a different name about almost exactly a year ago. And when I started it, it was something that I like you said, I had that nudge. I was like, I know this is something I need to do for myself. It's something I want to do. And I had no intention of how's this going to be monetized and all those things. I wasn't thinking about those. My full purpose in it was to, one, practice my voice. Like How
Mhm.
do I speak? What is the message that I'm saying? And how confidently can I really get behind it? And so there's a lot of power in vocalizing the things that you believe about yourself, about other people, about your business. And so it's really allowed me to develop like at hyper speed because I'm speaking it out loud,
Mhm.
therefore integrating it into my life. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so funny because until like again, being in the online space for a number of years, like I probably would say now it's been maybe 4 years where I was like starting other things and teaching people how to get better sleep on the shift worker type lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
I was always, now that I look back, struggling in quotes to really get any traction. And I feel I wasn't aligned. And I also was in the space of constantly writing things or trying to post on social media where I was like, this isn't working for me. And it's like, because this is the platform of being able to speak and really just channel what needs to come through is so easy, right? Because when you're in alignment, everything's easier.
Yeah. Yeah, things really they really do flow so much quicker when you're in alignment and you just have that flow, and it is kind of crazy. I recognized this probably about 6 months ago or so where I was finding that what I could accomplish in a day used to take me maybe like a week. And
Mhm.
it's almost like I didn't have to even consciously make a choice of like what my next step would be whenever it came to doing work in my business because I was so in the flow that it was like, no, this is just the natural progression of what the next thing is. And when you find that flow, oh man, just like don't be afraid to keep taking action, but also of course honor like your energy if you don't want to burn yourself out. But yeah, I love that you found that like and that you were able to recognize it. Can we just talk about for a minute how
Yeah.
important it is to recognize opportunities all around us? And so many people say constantly like, oh, it's just never going to happen for me, and they hem and haw, but it's like, are your eyes even open?
No, and that's I think one of the biggest things that I want to sort of like get out there that is my mission is for people to be more present in their awareness of what's actually going on, right? And I don't always like to use these terms because a lot of people think it negatively, but like people literally need to wake up to really understand that it's like your life is now. And when you're not paying attention to how you feel or the flow, the easiness, and you're in resistance or struggling or I'm the victim, think those thoughts will keep you there. But when you're
Yeah.
aware to what you're thinking, and like you said, when things are easy, when you're in the flow, it's like, oh, I can get more done. And it's like, this is the whole point of life. It's not about the doing, but it's about finding something that feels easy and going with that, something that lights you up, that feels good, and being
Mhm.
present in this now moment. And that's the biggest thing that I've learned from my career is that life can change really, really fast.
Yeah.
Um, and that we don't like, again, time is an illusion, but time is a real thing in this 3D world. And it's like we talk about like time is short, life is short. Yes, but if you slow down and you're more present in it, you'll be able to enjoy all the moments and things will actually seem like it's going slower because you're more present. Because I
Mhm.
spent 7 years investigating. So I'm still a police officer. I'm in my 23rd year, but I spent 7 years investigating motor vehicle collisions, fatal ones. And
Yeah.
it was heartbreaking to see, people have just gone to work in the morning and they don't go home. And it's like, in my job, that could happen to any of us. But
Yeah.
it was seeing the impact on people of how this changes their life, like the family, the people that are left here. And it's
Mhm.
like, what are we doing? Like, seriously, what are we doing? Like
Yeah.
going to a job that you hate or dislike, or living in a place or having the relationship that, your soul is dying. And yet we're so afraid to make the changes.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it stems from just the sort of societal conditioning that work should be hard.
Yeah.
If you want a good relationship, you really have to work at it. And to a degree, some of those things, like it's true, like to a very small degree. But
Yeah.
there's too many people that really are embodying this whole notion that everything in life, in order to have anything good, that you
Mhm.
have to struggle for it. And honestly, like I am no stranger to that. I am unlearning that as
Mhm.
we speak, right? It's part of my journey. Um, just as having had like not a great childhood upbringing with an alcoholic father, I was a competitive gymnast. There was a lot of things all around my life that created me to become this like hyper overachiever who's always doing.
Mhm.
And now when I come into my adult life and I've finally gotten into this flow, into this alignment that I've never really experienced before, and I find myself saying every so often, like, this should be harder. Am I being too lazy today? I didn't do enough today. And so I'm still having to unlearn these conditioned things. And it's really unfortunate that the majority of society, that's how they go through every day.
Yeah, and I like what you said, like unprogramming or unlearning. And
Mhm.
again, we're not going to be blaming our parents for anything because they only did the best that they could do at what
Right.
their consciousness was at the time. But when you, like for me, I was the same way, probably literally. Like I would, because what's you see and you grow up with, you're like, that's just the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I was always thinking 3 steps ahead. What are the kids eating? Like my youngest just turned 10. So like even 5 years ago, it's like, what are they eating? What are we doing next week? What's this? What's that? And always living in the future. And as I would go to get ready for bed at night or whatever, I'd be like, oh, I've got to go do laundry. I've got to do the dishes. It's like always doing. And
Yeah.
now it's like the world's not going to end if there's dishes in the sink. The world's not going
Mhm.
to end if there's dust bunnies in the corner. It's like learning to unlearn that it's okay to just be still. And
Right.
for me, it was 2017 where I thought I was like having like a breakdown at work, and it was like having confrontation within the people that I worked with. And it was like, okay, there's, what happened. I moved on. I went to a different position. Oh, things will be better over here. And then it's like, things didn't change. And then it was like, oh, the same thing happened. I'm like, maybe it's me.
Yep.
Maybe I'm the problem. And then
Maybe it's
it's like,
me.
right? Is that Taylor Swift?
Taylor Swift. Yeah. Hello, I'm the problem or whatever.
Yeah. But then it was like I sat down literally, and it was like sitting in the stillness. And this is where I reintroduced my meditation practice, where it was like, oh, it's my thoughts that are creating this feeling, which is creating the action that I'm taking.
Mhm.
And it's not a good road. And it's like,
Yeah.
but I have the opportunity to change that. And meditation has been a staple. Like, thank goodness that all that happened before COVID, because I was able to manage through COVID by having a daily meditation practice. But yeah, unlearning the doing.
Yeah, yeah. I wish I had found the meditation practice like during the time of the pandemic. Honestly, 2020 was just all in all a really rough year because before the pandemic really became a thing, my mother passed away like
Mhm.
a month before the pandemic just blew up. And so I was already not in a great space. And I was the heaviest I'd ever been. I was like 40, 50 pounds overweight. For my frame, for my like having used to been an athlete, my mental vision of myself was like, who the fuck is this person? Like I have no idea how to be her, She doesn't fit into any of my clothes. She's unhappy. She doesn't sleep well. And so it was one of those things where towards the end of 2020 was when I finally had that like moment of clarity for myself where I was like, Sarah, get your shit together. Like
Mhm.
you're in your 30s. This could be the best decade of your life, or it could send you down the road to where you have chronic illness at, 40 years old. I'm like,
Yeah.
something needs to change. And so I made a choice, and 10 months later, I dropped the weight and I'm back to feeling like me. But slowly but surely, I was able to start reincorporating things like meditation and yoga and just self responsibility. Like, honestly, I
Mm,
think that's one of the biggest takeaways that I've gotten out of my own meditation practice is being comfortable with the idea of taking responsibility for my own actions and my own decisions. So powerful.
it is powerful. And that's it exactly. It is when you take radical responsibility for every action in your life, not to say that circumstances may not have an impact, but how you react, meditation, right? That's meditation lengthens that gap between the trigger and the response. And when you take radical responsibility, you take all your power back. You take it, it's all you. And what an amazing feeling, right? For you to
Yeah.
go, I'm going to make this decision. This is what I'm going to do because I don't like how I feel. And I think a lot
Mhm.
of people, people don't want to know how they feel. They don't want to deal with their feelings.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's very true. It's something that is just sort of what's the right word? I don't know. It's just it runs rampant that people don't face their emotions and their feelings, and especially when it comes to male versus female. A lot of men are raised to just completely avoid their feelings, which is so dangerous. And in turn, females, I think too, in this rise of like females taking on these power roles and being the CEOs and all of the things, that they've started to take on those more masculine energies just as a whole. And so, yeah, now we have an entire population of people that are afraid to face themselves and probably can't even really look themselves in the mirror and say something kind to
Mm.
themselves. It's
Yeah,
just,
I like that you brought that up because I find it so interesting. Because I'm all for like our police service. We're in the capital of Canada in Ottawa, and we have about I don't even know how many like sworn members, maybe 15, 1,600, and not quite 25 to 30% are female. And I think we need more because we have a different perspective. But on the other flip side of that, I see a lot that aren't using the feminine aspect of what we could provide in different situations, but rather being sucked into the more masculine. I have to be tough. I've got to approach things this way. And it's like, no, like the whole point of getting diversity within
mhm.
anywhere is to have a different outcome of the situation. And
Yeah.
I'm all for feminism, absolutely, but that's giving us all the opportunity and that we all have a different perspective and we all see things differently, and to
Mhm.
be able to share that authentically, because you're right, there's a lot of women or females that have gone to these very um, high CEO levels, and you're right, they probably can't look at themselves because they've took the ladder without really paying attention to how they actually want to feel maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it really is. It's so true. I love that perspective, like what you just said, how, having that diversity, it is about having a different point of view. It is not to fit the same mold that already exists.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
what's the point of that? So, yeah, I mean, I think there's so much beauty in diversity. I love it. I love whenever I come across somebody who doesn't think like me, that has a different point of view, because that's like, that means that's an opportunity for me to learn something new, for me to see something differently. Because
Yeah.
how else am I going to see something differently unless I force myself to do so or I'm exposed to it?
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
and you can like I love having conversations where it's great to have people that support you, that agree with you, that all are like-minded, and yet on the other hand of that, you can be stuck in an echo chamber where all you hear is what you want to hear. And
yeah.
and then it's like, oh, somebody maybe has the same opinion as me, but not quite. But can we have like a really cool conversation, even if I don't quite agree, but I can see you as, a real authentic person
Mm-hmm.
and feel love and appreciation for you regardless of our opinions, right? Can you imagine what the world would be like right now if everybody could just say, I agree to disagree, but I respect how you feel?
Right. Like, what a beautiful opinion. I'm glad that it serves you, that it helps you go through your day, that you feel connected to it. Like, that's all you need to do. When someone has a different opinion than you, it's like, good for you.
Yeah.
As if you're standing by that and it's what brings you joy, like, more power to it. Like, that's fine.
Exactly.
Feed it, because everybody should have that. So, okay, I want to actually talk to you about something that, I think a lot of people can get tripped up when it comes to failures along the way. And I feel like this ties into our conversation pretty nicely. Has there been something for you along the way? Maybe it's in your law enforcement work. Maybe it's as you decided to lean more into the spiritual shift worker. But has there been a time where you just really, really felt like you were totally failing at something and it almost stopped you, but you kept going, you pushed through, and you look back and you're like, wow, that was really a fantastic opportunity. Pointed me in the right direction. Is there something like that for you?
There's been many. I mean, I
Yeah.
think like failure is, like I said, I've tried so many things, right? And because I knew that I wanted not necessarily to get out of policing, but definitely find something that was more aligned, more
Mm-hmm.
joyful, fulfillment wise. And I mean, I could have very easily years ago just went, oh, this whole online thing, this isn't for me. And that was when I tried to become a nutrition coach and a sleep coach, the whole shift worker thing. And, I would put out numerous like master classes and programs. And it's like, nobody would ever sign up. Right. And it was like, there was a part of it. It was like, I guess this just isn't meant for me. This just
Mm-hmm.
isn't meant for me to do this thing. I'm just going to have to suck up a 30-year career and be miserable. And that's just the way it's going to be. And yet there was something inside of me that said, just try something else. And I wish I could put exactly like what that is. It's those nudges. It's that intuition thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I look back and go, I'm so glad I tried all those things because they didn't work out for a reason, because now look where I am. But if I had just given up, right? Oh, this isn't for me. I would never have had the name of the spiritual shift worker come to me after meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And it sat with me for probably a couple months before I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that. Like, I'm like, I love it and it feels good. And I have all the chills but it's like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that. And then
It was still growing.
It was growing, it was incubating. And then, and then the little signs started to show up, right? Like a girlfriend who has her own podcast as well. She's like, hey, you should join this boot camp. And then someone else said something about a podcast. And it was like, oh, how does that feel? But if I had given up, right, and just gone back to working my shift work life and, raising my kids, and not that that's not unfulfilling, but a part of me knew like there's just something more to it. And so, yeah, the podcast was launched when I turned 50, which I think is significant.
Yay.
To show people, right? Like you can do anything you want at any age.
Yes, that is so true. Age is just a number. Like it has absolutely nothing to do with the state of your life. Like you choose what your day today is going to look like and what the state of your happiness and your beingness is going to be.
Exactly. Your beingness. And that's the thing, right? We're human beings, not human doings, as they say.
Exactly. And the reason I like to ask this failure question, it really got me thinking. Months and months ago, I was at a business conference and John Maxwell was the keynote speaker. And first off, I mean, everything he says is like a quotable phrase. So I'm like, no wonder he has like, a million books he's written and all the things. But I was sitting there like in the audience and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm taking notes and I'm like, that was good too. Oh my gosh. And I just couldn't stop. But he said something towards the end where he was talking about success and failure. And he's like, they go together. People need to stop thinking that if they have one, they won't have the other. Like if someone has failure, they won't have success. If someone has success, they'll never have failure. It's so untrue. Like they go together. They actually, it's like the yin and the yang. They cannot exist without each other, is essentially the concept that he was saying. And I'm like, it really is so true. People need to stop like beating themselves up when there's a moment that is, quote unquote failure, and instead just be like, okay, that didn't work. Now I know. Let me go do something different. Let me shift. Let me pivot. And hopefully the failure isn't something that is like cataclysmic to your life, burn your house down or something. But you're like, oh my gosh, I tried to cook and I burned my house down. All right, there's some steps to take. But but I think it's just it's so valuable, the failure, right? Like you said, you wouldn't have found all the things if you hadn't experienced the things that didn't work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I've actually taken like the failure isn't really in my vocabulary. It's like, oh, what lesson can I take from this?
Yeah.
Because whatever, regardless of how you label it, there's always going to be something that you've learned, right? It's like, oh, okay, I'm learning that I don't want to do that. Like you learn more about yourself if you are aware enough to ask the questions, right?
Yes.
And that's where it comes down to why didn't this work? But a lot of people, again, they just go because they've been programmed to go, well, I don't want to feel this way again, so I'm not going to try again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a good point. That's a really good point. So share with us a little bit about what it looks like when you are working with somebody through this spiritual shift work.
So the biggest thing is self-awareness. And for me personally, and what I believe like in my entire body is that you have to be connected with what's going on, right? We all are energetic beings and we all have all these gut instincts or heart feelings. And when we don't feel that or acknowledge it, that's where we're just going to be stagnant. Yeah. And in order to make a shift in any area of your life, whether that is moving out of a career that no longer fulfills you, or a relationship, or, just being able to drink more water, like it can be the tiniest shift, or it could be like selling everything you own and moving to Costa Rica, like whatever it is, you have to be aware of how you're feeling before you can get there. And that's all self-awareness. And so I believe you learn that through meditation, in understanding your thought patterns and how all the thoughts that you have impact everything. And so on the podcast, I showcase a variety of people, like from, people that are just they're still living their life, like a regular 9 to 5. I say that in quotes because I don't think there is such a thing, but who want to do something different, or want to lose weight, or want to quit smoking, or, more the people that have gone from making $0 to 7 figures within a year. Like it's such a drastic difference of people that I speak to. But one thing is that they all have started to listen to their intuition and their gut, whichever way that hits for you. For different people, it feels differently, but showcasing that these are the tools that you can do. If they can do it, you can do it too, but you have to slow down long enough to hear what your mind and your soul is telling you.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's for sure a skill to be learned. And I know that there's plenty of people out there that think meditation is like total BS because they're like, I don't have time for that. And it's like, if you don't have time to sit quietly and just honor yourself for 10, 20 minutes a day, you got bigger fish to fry than meditation.
Absolutely. Everybody, I mean, you get stuck in the hole for 10 minutes before you get out of bed. Some people it's like, no, put it down. Like, and it's, forget about the connecting to your intuition, the stress, the better sleep, just overall well-being for meditation to just sit
Hmm.
still. Like
Yeah. Well,
it's
and something that has been incredibly beneficial for me with meditation is, like you say, that awareness. So whenever I come through a moment of like high stress or something, let's say I'm having throughout the day, and I find myself where I'm like multitasking like crazy, which is not a skill that people should learn to do, by the way. Let's not glorify multitasking.
no.
But when I find myself in those kind of moments sometimes, and I'm just like, I'm everywhere, I'm everywhere, I can bring myself down, back down into my body and say, just breathe for a minute, Sarah, or go stand outside for
Yeah.
5 minutes. Like, give yourself that time. You deserve it. It's okay. The world's not going to come to an end if you don't do this one thing in the next 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And for me, that's been one of the biggest things is meditation. I mean, all of these things we talk about, um, they're just tools. It's not that you and I don't have these moments of anger, anxiety, stress, right? It's not that we don't experience these things. Those are human experiences and everybody goes through them. It's whether you stay stuck in it
Mhm.
or you have a tool to get yourself right out of it and say, okay, well, I guess I'm just going to go on with my day then. That was a little blip, but that's okay. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, it just, instead of it becoming this long, stuck, feeling, it's
Mhm.
just a moment of like,
Mhm.
okay, that was
Yeah.
uncomfortable. Didn't like it.
Yeah, exactly, right? And when you are out of those situations, right? And you feel better, you feel the flow, you feel good. And when you slip, quote slip, when you go down, you're like, "Oh, I'm being reminded that I don't like to feel that way." And the more that you practice that skill, like you said, the faster you come out of it, right? Like I used
Mhm.
to go down rabbit holes of being like in self-doubt and limiting beliefs. It would last like weeks, but now it's like barely moments because
Yeah.
it's like, no, I'm not thinking that. And I know that I just need to, like you said, go outside in nature, take a breath, sit still for 5 minutes. Like these are simple tools. And if you don't want to call it meditation, be more mindful, right? Just like
Yeah.
for me, mindfulness and meditation are two separate things. Um, but whatever it is that is a tool that's going to work for you, then just keep doing that until you're ready to move on to something different.
Yeah. Well, and I think it really, for me at least, the way my perception of all of it wraps up into the the overarching concept of just self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And I think back to like my days as a gymnast and how I
Mm,
had this insane self-discipline
yeah.
to do what needed to be done in order to achieve a certain result. The foods I was eating, the time I was spending working out, how much water I was drinking, all of the conditioning, the extra stuff outside of the actual workout itself, I was doing to keep my body fit enough to take on these very traumatic blows all the time. But it's like you think back into the self discipline, and I just sort of thought it was something that, like, being in gymnastics and having a coach that's like a hard ass is what drives it into you. But now I look back and I think, no, it was really just self awareness. It was awareness that I
Mm,
had a goal that I wanted to actively participate in, and I was aware enough to recognize what would serve me and what wouldn't. But
wow.
along the way, I forgot that, you
Yeah.
know? And I think a lot of adults do. We
Hmm.
forget it. We get into our 20s, our 30s, we get busy adulting,
Yep.
families, relationships, all the things, losing childhood friends, gaining new friends, and it just all of this change.
Yeah.
And we put on all these layers that just aren't
Mhm.
us anymore.
Yeah.
Um,
And then you
yeah.
have to peel them back off in
Yeah.
order to in order to have a really fulfilled life.
Mhm. Yeah. I'm actively in the layer peeling
Yeah.
phase of
It
my life.
doesn't stop. It doesn't stop.
No, yeah, and that's the beauty of it. That's what's so cool is, like, I've come to this realization that it's never going to end.
No.
Like, and that's so exciting. It's the journey, it's the everyday, it's those little micro moments, it's all the little stuff that I get to experience now where it's like, "Oh my gosh, there went another layer. Wasn't that great?"
Yeah, it really is. And as really like the collective of humanity, there's a lot of that going on right now. Like there's a lot of things that are crumbling and layers that are being peeled for people to really just come back to who they are, right? Like you said, exactly. Kids have this great imagination. Kids are, you're so disciplined because you're self-aware, and then life takes over. And now
Yeah.
people are coming back to go, but I don't want to be like that anymore. I don't want to live in the matrix where I'm programmed to do a certain thing. And
Hmm.
I think things are changing for the good. I mean, there's a lot of quote bad in the world if you want to view it that way, but if we just look at it as it's all happening for the good,
Hmm.
then
Yeah.
we're all going to be okay.
I agree with you. I think that it is a really beautiful thing that's happening, because the fact that I can have conversation after conversation with people that are experiencing their own version of enlightenment in some way or another, it's the coolest thing. I mean, I know that my parents probably were not having conversations like this,
Oh no.
simply because I wasn't witnessing them having conversations
No,
like this.
no, they definitely were not, I'm sure. No, my parents are both in their late 70s, and um, definitely not having conversations like this.
Yeah. And it's cool to see that cycle, because there, was like Louise Hay and all of these people writing books in the 50s and the 60s and even in the 20s, right? Like Napoleon Hill and all that, and talking about that thought, sort of changing thought leadership kind of scenarios. It's all just, it cycles back around, and the people that are ready to receive that information will pick it up and run with it. And I feel like right now that's what's happening with me and so many of the people that I come into contact with. They're allowing their voice to be heard and talking about this journey of enlightenment, and I think it's really cool.
It is. Yeah, no, it is definitely happening. And I think more people are, yeah, I don't care about what people think in a nice way though, like not
Yeah.
being an asshole about it, but like, and not really worrying. It's like, I'm going to do
Hmm.
this. These are the ways that I think. I'm not going to be a jerk, but like it or leave it. And
Right.
this is what I feel that humanity needs more of that,
Hmm.
right now, in order for people to, again, like live the life that they came here to live.
Yeah. Oh, I love it so much.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to put everything in the show notes for you guys. For sure, go and check out Lianne's podcast, The Spiritual Shift Worker. I'm going to be tuning into it 100%, because I want to hear these stories and I want to hear these conversations with these women that you're talking to about their own journey. Because there's always something when you hear these kinds of conversations, there's always like at least a moment where you feel like, whoa, that's me too.
Yeah.
And you feel connected to somebody that you don't even know. And I don't know, I just find that to be such an intriguing concept. But is there anything you'd like to share with us as we sign off today? Something on the horizon we should keep our eyes open for the listeners?
Yeah, no, thank you so much. Again, I love having these conversations. I think it's important for, people just to be soulfully seen, and as their authentic selves. And so that is something that's probably going to be coming up, is a masterclass about that and how to do that, how to be soulfully seen. And just, yeah, head to the podcast. You can binge. There's 60 some episodes out there,
Nice.
and I'm loving it. I'm having so much fun. And yeah, I just appreciate you so much for allowing me to come and speak to your listeners.
Absolutely. Well, I'm honored that you were able to be here and just share your story. And I'm so glad that I was able to get to know you more. Like, that's one of the fabulous parts about
Yes,
doing this too.
absolutely.
um, awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. All right, you guys, until next time, head to the show notes, grab all the goods, and we'll see you on the next show. Thank you so much for listening to Branded, the podcast. Please rate and review. And for more information, visit socialjanemedia.com. I'll see you soon.